Welcome to the 50th episode of I Confess with Travis. I am your host, Travis Bartlett. In today's episode, I'm going to be discussing what this show was about, talking about all the stories I've heard, and I will also talk about the other stuff on this podcast. And I will also be talking about how the show has been doing and so on. And before we even get started, I just want to let you guys know that last week I had said that I got a very special guest that's willing to be on the show. Let's just say that this guy I message, you heard him before on season 1, and he told me that he was willing to be on the show again for the last episode. And he told me that he would be agreeing to be on the show, but I waited for him for the entire month. He never answered me, even though he told me he was going to be on the show. Then I was like, okay, it's been about a whole month later. I need to go ahead and figure out what am I going to do. It was about 2 weeks later for this 50th episode of I Confess with Travis. I waited about 2 weeks. He never responded back. So then I said, okay, maybe I can try to find somebody. Maybe I could try to find someone quick. Maybe somebody who would want to be on the show. Well, let's just say I contacted the radio station and they went and laughed at me. Turns out you have to pay to get people to be on your show. I'm over here dumb as hell trying to figure out what am I going to do. I was thinking about maybe getting Chris Brown to be on the show, but the guy is pretty much busy performing, doing stuff, and entertaining other people. And then my friend Wayman, the one I was just talking about just about a second ago, he's kind of busy making music, he's working, and he's doing everything. Now, I'm not here to call him out. I'm not here to say that he forgot. I mean, I understand, like, when you're busy, you're busy. You don't have time to make phone calls or send messages to anybody. I get that. So then I was like, what am I going to do for this special episode of I Confess with Travis? So I had a couple of other ideas. I had this one idea where I thought maybe I can do where I would have like 50 people call me in and cuss me out on the phone. And then I'm thinking, like, why would I want to do that? Like, that's just the dumbest thing, like. And then I was going to do this thing called 50 Fun Facts, but then I thought that was going to be really boring. So I'm at a loss. It's been way over a month and I do not have a special guest on the show. Now, I know I do feel disappointed for telling you guys last week that I was going to have a special guest star on the show, and I feel like they just blew it. I mean, they actually agreed to be on the show, but it got to the point where they were not responding back to me. And I said, you know what? It's been way over a month. I might as well just go ahead and do the show without them. They will just have to get over it. I had some ideas of what I'm going to actually do for the show. For this episode, I might as well go ahead and just talk about how the podcast was doing. So the podcast was doing a whole lot better. I've had a bunch of calls. People were telling their stories. I was also telling my stories. And everybody said that this was like the best podcast they've ever listened to. I've gotten calls from people saying, you're doing a good job. I love your show. And there'd be people wanting me to like put them on the spot. And I would do it. I would just start hitting that record button as we're on the phone. And before you know it, we got a story. What I liked about this is because I got to hear a lot of interesting stories about people being abused. There was, let's say, stories about sex, stories about romance, weddings. I mean, just about anything. This podcast was known as a no topic zone. So you just get on this podcast and you just start saying, hey, I got a story and I want to tell you that story. And that's when this podcast became a big hit. And what I really liked about it is that this podcast was really anonymous. So people didn't have to tell their names or tell their age. Like, you can actually hear their stories. You can just say, hey, like, my story is about so and so and so. And people were just confessing about it. And I really like how people were honest to tell their stories about just anything that they wanted to talk about. I mean, the podcast was a big hit. I haven't had any problems with the podcast, even though it was a lot of work. But what I really wanted to do for this podcast is that I wanted to do 50 episodes for the entire year. Like, I wanted to start in the summertime and then next year end it in the summertime as well. But I wasn't getting any calls and I was getting behind. And then I thought, I'm just going to go ahead and just cancel the show. So then I said, you know what? I got a better idea. Since I've already ended it with 13 episodes, why not go ahead and do a podcast with seasons? So this is like the last and third season of I Confess with Travis. And I hate to break it to you, but like, I got other shows I got to actually do. This podcast was amazing. I wished I didn't have to end it, but I got other things I got to take care of. This podcast really helped me learn a lot from a lot of people. And I know I've told you stories about everything. That's what this podcast was about. It's just to confess, tell your stories about just anything that you're willing to talk about. And everybody kept saying that I was a great host. And I want to say thank you for saying that I'm actually a great host for the show. And I mean, I'm actually speechless right now. I mean, yes, I understand that the show has to end, but I got other projects I got to work on. I mean, like, I've got other shows I got to do. I mean, this was just for fun. Now, no, the show is not being canceled. It's just I had a limit of just doing 50 episodes. So I thought this would be the opportunity for me to just say thank you for making me be part of your world. Thank you for being part of my world in this podcast. This podcast was like the best podcast I have ever made. And it was a lot to do. I mean, I understand when you're working on a show, there's a lot of editing, there's a lot of, work that you need to get done. I mean, it's a lot of work. But what I want to actually say is thank you so much for being part of my podcast. To the people who actually told their stories, give yourself a round of applause. I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for being on the show, telling your stories. And then I also want to thank me, so go ahead and give me a round of applause. So thank you for having me host the show, getting to know you guys, tell your stories about whatever. But what I can actually say about this is that I'm glad I actually did this, because when I tell you that how bored I used to be as an adult, I was in my 20s and it got to the point where I was so bored, no one didn't want to like hang out with me anymore. I started having a job. I started working. I'm doing a lot of content, social medias. I mean, it's social media and going to your job is actually a whole lot of work. I mean, it's too much. But there was a couple times I've had a lot of people call me up giving me negativity, and they would say things like, oh, you're a bitch. You shouldn't be hosting. You shouldn't be in this world. Your show is dumb. Your show is stupid. Your show is lame. Well, at least I'm accomplishing something that I want to do. And the reason why people act like this is because they're jealous. They want to act all mean and grouchy and being a bitch because they think like they're entitled to act like it. These people do not understand that the world we live in, like, there's literally no care in the world. And every time I get a lot of negative phone calls, I always hang up on them and then just move on to somebody else. Then there were times I've actually had kids that would come on the show, and they would say things that are just not even supposed to be for adults to say. Like, there would be kids on here talking about, well, I'm 5 years old, and, and my dad raped me over a sock, or I'm 8 years old and I know nothing about nothing. And then there'll be kids over here telling their stories like, well, I want to tell you my story about how I came out of the closet, and it started with me fucking my grandma. And it's like you kids need to learn to grow up. Like, you do not need to learn, like, you kids don't need to be doing any of this crap. And to me, that just sounds like nonsense. Then there'll be times I've had people would always hang up on me, and then they would say things like, well, you told me you were going to put me on your podcast and you hung up on me. First of all, you're the one that hung up on me. So don't catch an attitude with me. I'm not the one. So if you wanted it to be on the podcast, then stay on the line. Don't hang up and then start catching an attitude with me. You're the one that hung up. There'll be like all kinds of crap. And then there's like ridiculous stories that make no sense. Like, oh, did you hear that my dad vacuumed up my dick because I was being a bad boy? Or my dad vacuumed up my underwear because I didn't pick him up off the floor? Or my dad touched me inappropriately and all this stuff. It's like, and then you want to turn these into jokes. And then you want to start laughing about it, talking about, like, oh, well, ha 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 ha. Like, that's not funny. That's just being childish. But I don't know what to say. I mean, like, to those people who want to act like an ass, I mean, like, you had your chance to be on the podcast, but y'all insisted on making fun of me. But at least I actually am accomplishing something that I want to do. So whatever you do, don't let negativity bother you. Don't let negativity take advantage of you or anything. All I want to say is this is actually also a goodbye. So I want to say thank you guys so much for being part of the show. And before you guys start listening to the end of this episode, the phone number has been now disconnected, so you're not going to be able to contact me or anything. So all I want to say is this is a final goodbye, and I want to say thank you for you guys to be on my podcast and you guys to tell your stories. This has been a great experience that I actually did. See, I had this idea when I was listening to a podcast called Best Kept Secrets with Lele Pons, and I thought, why don't I do something like that? But instead of like listening to secrets, I can just have people tell me their story. And I thought, why don't I go ahead and do something similar like that, but I can call it I Confess with Travis. And that's what gave me the idea. So I was like, okay, this will be a great podcast. I'm going to go ahead and advertise it. And before you know it, I'm listening to all these stories. That's what I liked about this podcast. So all I want to say is thank you for giving me the experience to you guys tell your stories to me. And I loved it. I really did love it. So I just want to say that this is a final goodbye.